The following program contains coarse language. Listener discretion is advised.
Our fight for social, economic, racial, and environmental justice.
I think the American people are going to have to say to NBC and ABC and CBS and CNN, you know what? Forget the political gossip. Talk about the real damn issues facing this country.
Hello and everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation, right here, TYT Nation, on YouTube, live. We're doing it a little bit early today. Normally we do things around 5 o'clock, but I'd like to do this a little bit early. Try to go to an earlier time. I actually wanted to go to 3 o'clock. Then some shit came up, and I realized, oh shit, I'm not going to be able to do that. So I do apologize. I'm throwing everybody off today. I understand that. Hopefully we'll get this all, straightened out and have like a good permanent time. That gives me, most of my day to not only do the show, but to get other things done. Because I realized that doing it so late, at 5 p.m. kind of messed me up for the rest of the day, because I had to do the editing and the posting, and then all my clips don't get in one day. And it's like, I got to do something about this. I got to change this whole thing up. So that's kind of the reason I'm springing this on everybody. I know, sorry guys, it sucks. It's bad timing. I didn't let you guys know. I'll be, better in the future. Let's just say that. But hey, even though earlier time, we still got a great show for you guys. And unfortunately, I don't have my sidebars, so I'm just gonna have to do it without those, and put those up in post, and that's fine. That's a little minor thing. It's a little picture in the corner, doesn't really matter a whole lot. Here's your breakdown, though. We've got a Supreme Court story making a decision on voter ID. It's actually it's not a good decision. It's not really a bad decision. So it's one of those things where it's like, well, I'll get into it when I get into the story. It's pretty quick. Then we've got a big story on Wells Fargo screwing over its customers again in a different way. And then alternative facts. We're going to talk about alternative facts. Oh, this is great. It's one of my favorite stories from the weekend. We've got WikiLeaks, a new story with them. You'll be interested to see what they're up to. And then we've got the possibility of going into Iraq again. I don't know if I'm making too much of a big deal about this. You'll have to see the video. But we do have a video of Donald Trump talking to the CIA and saying something rather interesting. And then we've got more Trump stuff, obviously. He is the president, so I'm going to have to cover this guy. And we've got Trump and his donors, and Bernie Sanders makes an appearance in there somewhere. So, fun times. We've got a fun show for you guys today. Great show. So stick around here for the next hour. We're gonna do this until about 4:30-ish. Again, I meant to start at 3 o'clock, but there was no way I was going to get things done in time. And I wanted to really put together the best show that I can for you guys. So we've got a lot of video clips and stuff for you today. It's going to be good. So anyway, let's get to the first story. Let's talk about voter ID. Let's talk a little bit about Texas and have some fun here. And by fun, I mean, dear God, this is going to suck. Now, the U.S. Supreme Court today just recently declined to hear an appeal by Texas. Now, Texas has basically been looking to get its voter ID laws back. Now, back in 2011, Republicans, this is right after the elimination of Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act. So after the elimination, a lot of these southern states that were formerly under the Voting Rights Act, the Section 5, which basically says, hey, if you're going to set up a new voting system, you're going to change the rules, you got to go check with the federal government. to make sure that, and the federal government will come in and they'll make sure that you are not being discriminatory towards minorities, mostly African Americans. So that's what they did in 2011, or I'm sorry, in 2011 they went and put in some new statutes, changed the rules in Texas, and another lower court said, hold on there, dude. What you're doing is discriminatory towards African Americans. And so they were able to put a stop to it. Texas, of course, appealed, and that brings us to today, where Texas just got shut down. Their appeal said, hey, the Supreme Court says we're not going to take this case. But the reasons are not going to be good. So let's talk about that. Now, first, I'm going to read a little bit from the Hill. And basically what it says is that the justices let stand a July 2016 decision by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals that found that the 2011 Texas statute ran afoul of federal law that bars racial discrimination. Okay. And basically said, hey, Texas, fix your face. You need to fix these laws so that you're not discriminating against minorities. Now, before you think, hey, this is great, this is a victory, right? Well, you have Chief Justice John Roberts out here that issued an explanation saying why they did not pick up this case. Now, Roberts said, quote, although there was no barrier in our review, all the legal issues can be raised on appeal at a later time. Basically saying, look, we're not taking up this case, but you can take it up later. There's nothing really stopping us. We just don't feel like taking it up right now. But if you take it up later, I mean, bring it to us. We'll take it. So, look, later on, that's where the problems begin. See, the court right now is split. Four liberal justices, 4 conservative justices. And then you've got the swing justice, right? Is one of those more conservative-leaning justices, more of a swing. I believe that's Stephen Breyer. Now, look, Scalia, obviously, he passed away. He was on the court. Obama was actually supposed to be able to pick his replacement. He picked Merrick Garland, in which the Republicans said, hell no. We're not going to allow you to put somebody on the court, even though it's your constitutional duty. We're not going to affirm. We're not going to do hearings. We're not going to do anything. Now, I was not a huge fan of Merrick Garland. So let's get that straight. I think he was a little bit more corporate friendly. Still, compared to what Donald Trump is going to put on the court to replace him, or to replace Scalia, Merrick Garland is probably going to look like a saint. In fact, Donald Trump has said, hey, we need more Scalias on the court. Well, so now you know who he's going to pick. And now you know why civil rights are in such danger, especially for African Americans, and voting rights. And see, this is the thing, right? This is the thing. Trump's going to replace Scalia with somebody who's just the same, if not worse. And this is going to impact voting rights. I mean, Donald Trump and the Republican Party specifically, they're going to come with a butcher knife to any and all voting rights. Which means this case comes back up when Texas tries to resurrect its voting ID laws. Well, there you go. They're going to decide, oh, voter ID, perfectly acceptable, not racist at all. Go ahead and do it. And the liberals on the court, they're not going to do anything about it because they're going to be outnumbered. So this is what we have. And again, this started with the VRA being gutted. And again, places like Texas, they said, finally, we can discriminate against black people, Latinos, and people who generally vote Democrats. Awesome. Let's do it. And a lot of them are getting away with it. But here's the thing about voter ID is you guys probably know this isn't about protecting the integrity of our elections. No, it's all about keeping people away from the polls. About saying these people cannot vote. They cannot be allowed to vote. We're going to make it as difficult as we can for them to get out to the polls. You know why? Because when that happens, Republicans win. Conservatives win. And look, recently during the primary, the Democratic primary, the Democrats tried it too. And guess what? The corporate-backed candidate also won. So it's documented. You keep these people out who are generally more liberal, generally more progressive, you're going to get that corporate candidate. You're going to get that Republican candidate. So this is what we have. This is what's going on. And of course, it's based on the godfather of the conservative movement, Paul Weyrich, who famously, and I showed you the video 100 times, Paul Weyrich and the Goo syndrome, saying we don't want more people to vote because, quite candidly, our leverage in the elections goes down as the voting populace goes up. I can almost quote that verbatim at this point. So they want less people to vote. And that's what this decision, that's what this decision doesn't stop. This isn't a ruling saying that is unconstitutional. That's why this is not a victory. This is not a win. This is a reprieve, okay? Because I don't see the same Supreme Court that argued that racism doesn't exist institutionally in America anymore. I remember them making this argument when they voted down Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act. And so I don't see this court intervening to stop Texas from reinstating its grossly racist voter ID laws, which have been proven, by the way, by studies and decided by a lower court that they were intentionally discriminatory towards minorities and African Americans. Now, I hope I'm wrong. I really do. But look, I'm cynical, and for a damn good reason, I would think. The shape of this country and the direction that it's starting to take, man, I don't see anything good coming from this. I don't see anything good for the next at least 4 years. So, again, this is a disaster in the waiting. All right, let's move on. Let's go to Wells Fargo. What did they do today that deserves to be in the news? Well, now Wells Fargo got itself into trouble last year when it was found that it was illegally opening as many as 2 million deposit and credit card accounts without the knowledge of the customer. Now, it was fined. It was found out, and it was fined about $185 million. And there are a lot of people who were working there that ended up being fired from the positions. These are a lot of the people, the lower people on the floor and middle management. So they were purged like, oh, you guys, I can't believe that you would do this terrible thing, opening these accounts and then charging interest and then whatever, making money, like however way they made money off the scheme of illegally opening these accounts. They got rid of these people, kept all the profit, except for that $185 million, which I'm assuming didn't really put a huge dent since Wells Fargo was an enormous bank making hundreds of millions, possibly billions of dollars in profit. So now there is new information out on another thing that Wells Fargo had done to screw over its customers in pursuit of profit. Now, this is from ProPublica. Now, they are reporting that 4 different Wells Fargo employees in the LA region, and this is the LA region only, I have to stress that, they say the bank regularly charged customers improperly in order to extend their promised interest rate when their mortgage paperwork was delayed. Now, I'll do a breakdown of what this actually means later on. But basically, what they did is that they, for people who are trying to get a mortgage, they charge you an interest rate on that loan. And they say, you can lock in this loan if you get your paperwork now. Oh, look at that. Your paperwork's late, but if you still want to lock in this loan, we are going to charge you an extra fee. So that's kind of the gist of it, right? If you want to keep your low interest rate, you got to give us some money because your paperwork, it's your fault you sent in your paperwork late. That's essentially what they're saying. Now, the employees that had worked there, the former employees, said the delays were actually usually the bank's fault, but that management instead forced them to blame the customers so they can get that money from the fees. He says, quote, "We didn't delay that paperwork." I'm sorry, that is not a quote. No. What went on is that they said it's not our fault. If that paperwork gets delayed, we didn't do it. While Wells Fargo, of course, makes money off those large fees. Now, one of those employees thinks that this is even worse than what Wells Fargo had been recently fined for. Now, this is a former Wells Fargo loan officer named Frank Chavez. Now, he wrote this in a letter that was recently released back in November to Congress. Now he says, I believe the damage done to Wells Fargo mortgage customers in this case is much, much more egregious than the sham accounts. We're talking about millions of dollars just in the LA area alone, which were wrongly paid by borrowers' customers instead of Wells Fargo. Now, Chavez had worked there for about 10 years. And he had just recently resigned from his job in the Beverly Hills Private Mortgage Group back in April. Now, Chavez sent his letter to the Senate Banking Committee in the House Financial Services back in November and never seemed to have gotten a reply. That's kind of weird. I wonder if Congress is owned by the banks. I wonder. Now, there are also 3 other employees that I mentioned, former employees of Wells Fargo in the LA area that confirmed Chavez's account. Now, they say that the man that's in charge of the region, the LA region, a man named Tom Swanson, was responsible for this policy. Now, so how far did it go? Well, I mentioned earlier that this was only in the LA area, as far as we know. According to 2 of the former employees, other Wells Fargo employees from different regions told them that the bank did not charge extension fees for customers as a matter of routine, unlike what they did in LA. Now, 3 of the former employees who now work for other banks say that their new employers also do not engage in these practices. So this is essentially LA region and LA region alone, which, look, is a incredibly big region. There's a lot of money in that area, especially when you look at the housing prices and how much money people have to take out for these loans. Now, in case you're wondering, as I said, how this works, I'm going to give you a little bit of a breakdown. Basically what happens, and this is standard throughout most of the banks, a loan officer will start a loan application for a client. Now, in order to do that, you got to get some documents, tax returns, bank statements, all that stuff, right? As well as getting the title to the property. Then, of course, the loan officer prepares a credit memo, submits the file to the processing department, and underwriting for review, fairly standard stuff. Now, that process should take no more than 60 to 90 days, depending on what kind of loan you get. Okay. Now, during that period, the bank will allow a customer to lock in the quoted interest rate on the mortgage, which is generally pretty low. Now, when they lock in this rate, it basically prevents them from rising interest rates. However, if they miss that deadline in filing their paperwork and the rates have gone up, the borrower, well, first of all, if they don't want to pay this higher interest rate, they can do something, they can essentially extend this low rate for a fee, typically about $1,000 to $1,500, depending on how big the loan is. So that's what we have. Now, Wells Fargo policy is to pay extension fees when it's at fault for its own delays. However, in the Los Angeles region, the former employees say Wells Fargo made customers pay for its failures to meet those deadlines. Now, these former employees attribute those delays to inexperience and low pay in the processing and underwriting staff. In addition, in order to cut costs, the bank, of course, understaffed their offices. So they don't have enough people, and the people that are there are untrained. They're not trained as well. And they're not good at their jobs, essentially. And I'm not like casting shade on those people, but if you're poorly trained and you're poorly paid, if you're a guy off the street, yeah, you're not going to know how to underwrite a loan. You're not going to do it very fast. So there you go. Now, according to the former Wells Fargo employee, the reason that we are not closing on time was predominantly lender related. When a loan officer asked the bank to pick up the extension fee, it didn't make a difference if the written request was a one-liner or the next War and Peace. The answer was always the same. No, declined, borrower paid, never, lender paid. Okay. Now, anticipating that it couldn't close on time, the bank decided to come up with some different strategies in order to shift the blame to customers. That's not our fault, it's your fault. Okay. Well, the most blatant methods of attempting to transfer blame onto customers, Chavez wrote, included having loan processors flag the file for missing customer documentation or information that had already been provided to the borrower. The customers would then have to refile, blowing past that deadline. So look, anybody who's ever had to fill out any kind of paperwork, knows how frustrating it is to gather all those materials together. You gotta get all the records, and you gotta fill out the paperwork. It takes a while, and it's annoying. And knowing that this particular bank region was making you do all that bull crap on purpose, oh man, like, you guys don't know how much I hate paperwork. I despise paperwork. I hate it. I hate doing it. So knowing that right there, oh, that would make my blood boil. Oh, it would piss me off so much. And look, it pissed off a lot of people. In fact, there are a lot of people who decided, once they started charging these fees for lost paperwork or missing paperwork or getting them to refile, they're like, screw you, we're going to go to another bank. Okay. Now, not only that, but sometimes loan officers would ask customers to submit extra documents that they didn't actually need for its initial assessments, burdening them with even more ridiculous paperwork to ensure that they did not meet this deadline. On occasion, employees reportedly built in a cushion, quoting a higher fee at the beginning. That way, they didn't have to go back to tell the customer about the extra fee at the end. So, look, that's kind of dirty, right? Immediately dirty and frustrating as hell. And obviously, the company itself, at least in that area, the regional manager didn't do anything to discourage it. In fact, they encouraged it. One employee said he complained to the boss about the situation, but upper management referred the problem back to the regional manager. The employee's immediate manager then decided to scold him. Now, they also told the manager also told coworkers that he personally took a hit if the bank paid out too many extension fees. He says they would be very upfront that their bonuses are tied to extension fees. The other former loan officer says during a meeting, the branch was told extension were costing the branch money. Now, look, I know that if you tie fees like that to somebody's bonus, like a regional manager's bonus, well, that manager is going to make sure that everybody has to get those fees so that he can put them in his pocket. Now, it's not the first time this guy's gotten in trouble for trying to make money by screwing over customers. This guy's last name is Swanson, of course. What was his full name? It's Tom Swanson. Now, in 2005, customers in Los Angeles sued Wells Fargo for racial discrimination. Now, they contend that Swanson prohibited loan officers in minority neighborhoods from using a software program that gave them the ability to offer borrowers discounted fees. He allowed loan officers to use that same program in white neighborhoods, where residents paid lower fees as a result. Believing that minority borrowers did not shop around for mortgages, Swanson contended that Wells Fargo did not need to offer those discounts in their neighborhood since they faced less competition, according to witnesses' testimony at this trial. And in 2011, an LA Superior Court jury found that Wells Fargo intentionally discriminated on a portion of the loans in question and awarded plaintiffs a total of $3.5 million, a decision that was upheld on appeal. And with interest, the payout rose to just under $6 million. Wow. Now, if you ask the bank, well, they said, oh, we didn't settle because they were right. We settled just to settle. We didn't want to have to appeal anymore. It's too annoying. They said, the spokesperson for the bank said, the verdict in the case was not in line with the law and the facts, and there was no evidence that class members paid a higher price than other similarly situated borrowers. Nevertheless, the bank decided to pay the judgment rather than pursue additional appeals. And the thing is, this Tom Swanson guy, he's still there. He's still working there after all that. Barry Capello, the plaintiff's attorney in the case, referring to the region Swanson oversees, says, quote, Swanson runs that place. He is the man. They do what he wants done. Despite the lawsuit and the millions they paid out, the guy is still there. Jesus. Now, look, here's the thing, right? Some of you might think, yeah, but okay, maybe it's not this guy's fault. Maybe it's not with ill intent. Maybe it's just poor customer service. And it's not criminal. And you're right, it isn't criminal, but I don't think it's just a result of poor customer service. I think it's cost-saving measures run amok and a toxic corporate culture that encourages screwing over the customers. Now, what they need to do is they need to properly staff their departments. And if it's their fault, admit it and then pay the fee. What this is another example of a company trying to shift their mistakes and losses onto you, the customer. This is the thing that we're trying to get away from. Now, how much did it cost a lot of these borrowers, right? These people that end up having to pay these fees? Well, there's a few estimates. And the overall amount is generally unclear. But Chavez and another employee estimate that they ran into the millions of dollars. And another former employee estimates that a quarter of the mortgages at the branch had to be extended. And by that measure, if a loan officer did $100 million of loans in a year, those mortgages would get about $62,000 in extension fees, right? Now, take that in context when I give you the next number. The Beverly Hills office alone, one of 19 other branches, did around $800 million to $1 billion in underlying mortgages. That generated about at least $500,000 in extension fees that came from your pocket right into theirs. Now, it may not be criminal, but it is grotesque. So how do you fight against it? Like anything, if you're going to get a loan, be careful. Do your research, do your homework, be careful, read the terms so that you make sure that these banks don't end up screwing you over. Okay. So that's the bank segment. Let's go to alternative facts. This will be fun. All right. Now, Kellyanne Conway has an interesting defense of Sean Spicer, who was the White House press secretary, and his provably false claims about the Trump inauguration crowd size, which admittedly, look, the crowd size wasn't bad. It was a pretty decent turnout, especially considering that right now he's the most unpopular incoming president we've ever had. I mean, a lot of different polls put his approval rating at 37% to 44%. That's bad. He hasn't even done anything yet. Well, he's done a couple of things, and they've been pretty bad. But he's also done one good thing, at least, and he decided to withdraw from TPP. Hey, congratulations. That's great. I'm in favor of that. But some of the other stuff, not so great. But my point is, he hasn't really done a whole lot in the time frame to warrant such a low approval rating. But anyway, back to Kellyanne Conway. Now, she was on NBC's Meet the Press with Chuck Todd. Now, Chuck Todd is somebody that I don't normally give any credit to, because I think he's basically Republican light. But in this case, surprisingly enough, the guy actually tried to do his job and sort of hold Sean Spicer kind of accountable, which led to this interesting exchange. Let's take a look.
Excuse
and
me,
it's
it
still
does
out
not
there.
excuse, and you did not answer the question.
I did answer your question.
No, you did not. You did
Yes,
not
I
answer
did.
the question of why the president asked the White House press secretary to come out in front of the podium for the first time and utter a falsehood. Why did he do that? It undermines the credibility of the entire White House press office
No, it
on day
doesn't.
one.
Don't be so overly dramatic about it, Chuck. You're saying it's a falsehood, and they're giving Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts to that. But the point remains.
Wait a minute. Alternative
that there's-
facts? Alternative facts, 4 of the 5 facts he uttered. The
Hey,
one
Chuck,
thing he
why-
got
hey,
right
Chuck.
was Zeke Miller. 4 of the 5 facts he uttered were just not true. Look, alternative facts are not facts. They're falsehoods.
I'm going to stop there. No, they're not just falsehoods. They're straight up lies. Alternative facts are not facts. Repeat after me. Alternative facts are not facts. They're lies. They're lies. But see, look, this is what they've done, right? And I've noticed this with Donald Trump, and I've noticed this with Kellyanne Conway. I've noticed this. Basically, what they do is that they'll lie about something, get challenged, and then they'll be like, they'll go into something completely different. They will do this massive, massive deflection. And I can't be the only one who has ever noticed this, right? But when it comes to alternative facts, see, I'm gonna try something interesting here. I'm going to start putting out some alternative facts. And I'm going to help the GOP out because there are some things that maybe need a little bit of rebranding. Now, for example, tax cuts for the rich, deeply, deeply unpopular with most of the American people. Most of the American people think the rich don't need to pay less taxes. They either should pay the same they do now and close the loopholes, or they should pay a little bit more. That's a position held by a majority of the American people. Now, again, tax cuts for the rich, unpopular. So, alternative facts. Let's call tax cuts for the rich alternative revenue. Oh, this is fun. Okay, so again, most Americans are in favor of Roe v. Wade. Now, Donald Trump and the Republicans, they want to get rid of Roe v. Wade. They want to make it so that abortion is illegal. Well, that's not a popular position either. So how about we call it, instead of banning abortion, call it alternative abortion. Well, somebody gets pregnant? Well, that's okay. They can have an alternative abortion, which just means they're forced to have their baby. Again, this is fun. So how about getting rid of the ACA? Getting rid of healthcare, getting rid of Medicare, Medicaid, all that stuff. Well, let's just call that alternative healthcare. See how easy this is? This is great. Just think of the opposite of something, or something that is the opposite of something else. You slap the label alternative on it, and then you too can be just like Kellyanne Conway. Look, so seriously though, she's actually going to go in, and I talked about this massive deflection. This is what they do. And of course, that's exactly what she does. And I've got the video. Let's take a look.
Chuck, do you think it's a fact or not that millions of people have lost their plans or health insurance and their doctors under President Obama? Do you think it's a fact that everything we heard from these women yesterday happened on the watch of Barack Obama? He was president for 8 years. Donald Trump's been here for about 8 hours. Do you think it's a fact that millions of women, 16.1 million women, as I stand here before you today, are in poverty along with their kids? Do you think it's a fact that millions don't have health care? Do you think it's a fact that we spent billions of dollars on education in the last 8 years only to have millions of kids still stuck in schools that fail them every single day? These are the facts that I want the press corps to cover, and this is why I'm here at the White House,
I understand
to
this.
change
What I don't
awful
understand
numbers
is
like that.
That is not what yesterday was about. So you
Yes,
have not
it is.
answered the question. You did not answer the
It's
question.
what this presidency is going to be about.
You sent the press secretary out there to utter a falsehood on the smallest, pettiest thing.
Maybe this is me as a pollster, Chuck, and you know data well. I don't think you can prove those numbers one way or the other. There's no way to really quantify crowds. We all know that. You can laugh at me all you want, but I'm
not
very
laughing.
glad.
I'm
Look,
just
Chuck,
befuddled.
well, but you are, and I think it's actually symbolic of the way we're treated by the press. The way that you just laughed at me is actually symbolic of the way, very representative of the way we're treated by the press.
Oh my God. So not only did she just do a massive deflection, then she turned it around. She spun it around and made herself the victim. I can't believe this is the way the press treats us. After she just defended a lie and said, don't worry, lies aren't lies. They're alternative facts. She's the victim. Now she's the victim. This is amazing. And the other amazing thing about this is that there are going to be people who support Trump, and they're going to sit there and they're going to watch this and they're say, yeah, how dare you treat Kellyanne Conway and Donald Trump this way? Fake news. Oh. And look, don't get me wrong. If you've been watching my channel for any amount of time, you know I've got a huge problem with corporate media. And I don't like having to sit there and defend Chuck Todd, which I've had to attack before because he didn't do his job. This time, he actually kind of did his job a little bit. And so it's sad when I actually have to give him credit for asking questions and doing some follow-up. But again, that's my problem with the corporate media. But come on, dude. Alternative facts. You said this on live TV in front of millions of people. Alternative facts. And then you have the deflection, and then you have the victimhood. Oh, I'm such a victim. The media's they're so unfair, but I'm such a bigger person that I'm just going to let it go. It's almost as if this is some sort of predetermined strategy in order to take down the credibility of the media. And the sad thing is, this actually might be working. Oh. Okay. We got more. We got, let's get to our WikiLeaks story, because this is actually, I like this story. I don't know if it's my favorite of the day, but I like this story. Now, WikiLeaks wants you to know what's in Donald Trump's taxes. Now, look, this is pretty significant because Donald Trump is the only president in modern times who has decided not to release their tax returns to the public. Now, Trump has a lot of excuses for this. Oh, no, they're under audit. You can't see them while they're under audit. Well, no, that's actually not true. That's another one of his alternative facts, despite the IRS, of course, saying, no, you can release them. So essentially, he's lying about this because he does not want you to see his tax returns. Why? We still don't know, and that's another reason to see it. Now, we have, of course, I've got a little bit video of Donald Trump talking to reporters about why he won't release his taxes.
Do you believe the hacking was justified, and will you release your tax returns to prove what you're saying about no deals in Russia?
Well, I'm not releasing the tax returns because, as you know, they're under audit.
Since the 70s, has had a required audit from the IRS.
Gee, I've never heard that.
But as president, sir,
you know, the only one that cares about my tax returns are the reporters. Okay,
you don't think the American public is concerned about
that? No, I don't think so. I won.
Do you believe the hacking?
I became president. No, I don't think they care at all. I don't think they care at all. I think you care. I think you care. And actually, people have learned a lot about my company, and now they realize my company is much bigger, much more powerful than they ever thought. We're in many, many countries, and I'm very proud of it.
Okay, again, see what he does there. See what this guy does. So not only is he like, oh, I didn't know that. Again, possibly a lie that WikiLeaks, or I'm sorry, not the WikiLeaks, that the IRS, that he didn't know the IRS would let you release your tax returns if you were under audit. I don't know if he knew that or not. Okay. But as far as, oh, they don't care. The American people don't care. And actually, he turned this around to say how big his businesses are. And that's what Donald Trump's great at. Just spinning the conversation, controlling the narrative. Now, as far as the American people not caring about this, that is another alternative fact. According to ABC News Washington Post poll, and this was done post-election, by the way. So his whole thing is, oh, they don't care. I won, didn't I? Well, no, that's not a good reason, because there's still a lot of people that still want to see what's in your tax returns. And the reason that that's important, though non-binding, right, because like it's a tradition that presidents release their tax returns so that we can see if they have any conflicts of interest. Well, we want to see if Donald Trump has conflicts of interest, but he doesn't want us to see that, which is very, very interesting. It makes us say, maybe he does have some conflicts of interest. Now, the American people, according to this poll, 74% of them say, let's see the tax returns. Let's see them. I want to see them. I want to see if you have these conflicts of interest. If not, great. It's the same thing about the Goldman Sachs transcripts. I wanted those released. Why? Because I wanted to see what kind of stuff how much she was getting paid and what kind of stuff that Hillary Clinton was saying to these banks. Now I want to see what Donald Trump, what kind of business entanglements he's gotten himself into. And if he has these conflicts of interest, especially with, I don't know, foreign nations. But anyway, now there was also an interview on ABC's this week where Kellyanne Conway, I almost called her Kanye, was asked about the over 200,000 petition signatures calling on Trump to release the tax returns. Now, 100,000 is the threshold where the White House has to respond. Now, Conway said, quote, the White House response is that he's not going to release his tax returns. We litigated all this through the election. People didn't care. They voted for him, and let me make this very clear. Most Americans are very focused on what their tax returns will look like while President Trump is in office, not what his look like. Now, again, I just read you the poll. Wrong. In fact, if Trump were here...
Wrong.
Okay. People actually do give a shit about this. Just like the millions who are actually worried about their health care. They also exist. Their Medicaid, their Medicare, and Social Security. Stuff that the Republicans, at least, are looking to gut. So, With all that context, here comes WikiLeaks. Now, on Sunday, the Transparency Organization urged people to submit Donald Trump's tax returns so they could release him because, as we can see, Donald Trump has no interest in doing so. Now, WikiLeaks tweeted, Trump counselor Kellyanne Conway stated today that Trump will not release his tax returns. Send them to us so we can. Ooh, I like that. Now, WikiLeaks also tweeted, quote, Trump's breach of promise over the release of his tax returns is even more gratuitous than Hillary Clinton's concealing of her Goldman Sachs transcripts. Again, damn, you were just dropping the hammer on Donald Trump. Here comes the people's elbow. Right into his face. Now, as far as WikiLeaks is concerned, I've been pretty consistent on them, okay? I believe in what they do, and I think they serve a vital function in releasing some of the data that we should be allowed to see. Things like exposing war crimes and exposing corruption in the highest levels of our government. That is stuff that we need to know. And so, look, I'm in support of WikiLeaks, and I have been for a long time. Now, there are some on the left, mainly supporters of Hillary Clinton, that unfortunately don't see it the same way that I do. In fact, they call WikiLeaks and anybody who supports them Kremlin apologists, Russian stooges, all that stuff, right? Or even, hey, you're a Donald Trump supporter since you support WikiLeaks. No, I support transparency. It's not my fault that Hillary Clinton, John Podesta wrote a whole bunch of crappy things in their email, like about Bernie Sanders and about how they're trying to pass questions off to Donna Brazile, passing questions off to Hillary Clinton through CNN, all that stuff, right? Now, there are also people out there that are saying that WikiLeaks, what they tweeted about Trump's tax returns, is just a cynical act of trying to regain credibility. I've heard that argument before, too. I don't agree with that. To me, this is WikiLeaks just being WikiLeaks. You want to know why they went after Clinton so hard? Well, first, they had this entire trove of Podesta emails just sitting there. Secondly, I believe that they assumed, like a lot of people, that Hillary Clinton was going to win the election, so it was important to release these emails to hold her accountable and to hold the Democrats accountable. Now, did the Podesta emails that were released have a huge impact? Now, for me, personally, I argue, no, not so much. At least from my perspective, and of course, those of you who are watching at home, you kind of already knew that Hillary Clinton was an establishment politician and that establishment politics right now is pretty corrupt. Now, you also know that she and the DNC did not like Bernie Sanders. They didn't like any challenge from progressives. No. It's Hillary Clinton's turn. It's Hillary's turn. She's going to be the safe establishment choice. And that's what we want because the establishment works for us. So we all knew that the DNC was going to protect itself from any sort of progressive challenger, whether it be Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? They don't like progressives. Now, again, the Podesta emails were not that all surprising. What it did is that it just affirmed what we already suspected out of the DNC and the Democratic Party. So I'm going to argue, and maybe I'm wrong, but that I'm going to argue that it didn't have that big of an effect on people. Okay? Especially, it didn't have an effect on Hillary Clinton supporters, certainly. And it didn't have an effect on Trump supporters. It didn't have an effect on a lot of people. Okay? So I think it's wrong when the DNC tries to blame WikiLeaks for hurting her chances. I would argue that the DNC and Hillary Clinton hurt their own chances. And again, this is coming from somebody who wants to see not less Democrats win. I want to see more Democrats win. I want to see progressive priorities. So this isn't coming from a Trump perspective. Now, finally, I do want to note the hypocrisy of some Democrats on this issue, and of course the hypocrisy of Republicans as well. Now, for example, when the Manning documents come out, Chelsea Manning released this information, war crimes in Iraq and Afghanistan. There's a lot of people on the left that said, great, that's awesome. We love WikiLeaks. Keep doing what you're doing. And then when Obama came into office and WikiLeaks released details from Edward Snowden, basically showing how the government is essentially spying on all of us through these massive data collection programs. Well, suddenly these same Democrats that were like, yay, for Chelsea Manning and WikiLeaks are now saying, boo, Edward Snowden. And so, and on the other side of the coin, you had conservatives that were like, yay, let's go after Obama, let's go after the Democrats. Now, again, when Snowden, the files came out, Democrats flipped their shit. And now with the Podesta emails, the coin has flipped again. And basically, Democrats now see WikiLeaks as this stooge of Russia and the enemy, the person that got Trump elected. While now, to Republicans, it's essentially a hero. But really, when it comes to it, WikiLeaks, I don't think, takes sides. Or at least the truth does not take partisan sides. Now, I reported very, very aggressively in the Podesta emails. And I'm also in favor of Chelsea Manning. I was so glad that when her sentence got commuted, that she'll be out in 5 months. And I'm in favor of bringing home Edward Snowden and pardoning him as well. But I also want to see Trump's tax returns. And I also want to see any dirt they have on the RNC as well. We know they're a corrupt party, but we don't know how corrupt they really are. For those who keep making this a partisan issue, you're wrong. WikiLeaks does not serve a political party. Its ideology is simply the release of information. It has always been, and hopefully will continue to do so in the name of holding governments accountable and promoting transparency. Okay. Got a couple more stories left. So we'll round this stuff out. Got a quick story here on the CIA. In a recent speech President Trump made to the CIA, he might have just referenced reinvading Iraq. Oh, this could be a bad idea. Let's take a look at the clip and go from there.
The old expression, to the victor belong the spoils. You remember I always used to say, keep the oil. I wasn't a fan of Iraq. I didn't want to go into Iraq. But I will tell you, when we were in, we got out wrong. And I always said, in addition to that, keep the oil. Now, I said it for economic reasons. But if you think about it, Mike, if we kept the oil, you probably wouldn't have ISIS because that's where they made their money in the first place. So we should have kept the oil. But, okay. Maybe you'll have another chance.
Maybe we'll have another chance. That doesn't sound good. Another chance at what? Invading another country and taking their natural resources. Oh, great. Now look, if you're concerned, like a lot of people were, that Hillary Clinton might have gone to war with Russia, and by the way, putting this no-fly zone is also a Republican priority in Russia that would have, in Syria, that would have actually got us into conflict with the Russians. Well, look, I hear you guys, right? Yes, there was a concern that Hillary Clinton would put in this no-fly zone if she had gotten elected and put us in conflict with the Russians. But again, that just as I said, that's a Republican priority as well. So either way, But right now, what makes it worse in the foreign policy front with Donald Trump is that he's looking at war with Iran. Basically, if he rips up the Iran deal, which prevents them from pursuing a nuclear weapons program, well, look, if we rip up that deal, Iran is going to go back to making nuclear weapons, and then we're going to find out, and we're going to bomb them. And then you've got war. And if you think Iraq was bad, look at what's going to happen in Iran. Iran is 4 times the size of Iraq. And they actually have they filled a pretty decent military, and they've been funding different terrorist groups throughout the region. So even with this, now Donald Trump is talking about possibly going back into Iraq and stealing the oil. Or maybe I'm making too big of a deal of this, and maybe it's just talk. Then again, look, Donald Trump doesn't know how to shut up. So maybe he's just talking, maybe, he doesn't have this speech ahead of time or written by Steve Bannon or anything like that. So he's just talking. It's just talk. Well, still, it is concerning talk because he's not just a crazy Republican candidate. He is now the president of the United States. And I am concerned because I am against useless, ridiculous wars and burning more fossil fuels. I don't think we really need to do either of these things. So, not a good thing, even if it is just talk. And I hope it is just talk. Now, what another thing this shows is how much of a wild card Donald Trump is. Yeah, maybe maybe we'll have another chance. Maybe you'll find out what it's like to steal the oil from Iraq, invading a sovereign nation. Who knows? Or maybe we won't. I don't know. I got to go to the tweeter to find out. Ugh. Look, I keep telling you guys, before the election, after the election, I kept telling you, brace for impact, brace for impact. A war with Iran or re-invading Iraq in order to steal their natural resources, those would be about the biggest impacts you could get. And it's not good. Okay. One more story here. It's probably going to take us past an hour, but fuck it. Let's do it live. Now, during his inauguration, President Trump told the crowd that we are transferring power from Washington, D.C. and giving it back to you, the American people. Sounds great, right? Again, that was a speech written by Steve Bannon. Now, however, Donald Trump seems to have a different idea of the American people, of who are the American people, than you and I do. Now, basically what I'm trying to say is that instead of handing power back to you, well, documents recently obtained by The Intercept show who he really wants to give the power to. His wealthiest donors, his VIPs. In fact, Bernie Sanders might have said a little bit of something about it along those lines. Let's check that out real quick.
I found it somewhat amusing that Mr. Trump, President Trump, was punching the establishment, but right behind him, John, sitting in the VIP sections, were billionaire after billionaire after billionaire. Some of the most powerful people in this country who over the last 10, 20 years have become much, much richer while the middle class has shrunk. And when billionaires and large corporations are funding many of your inaugural events.
And that's essentially what's going on, is that you have lots of really rich donors bankrolling this inauguration. Now, in the documents, the Trump administration allocated at least a dozen of 183 seats on the inaugural platform to donors and fundraisers who sat beside cabinet designees, senators, and President Trump's immediate family. Now, another 49 seats for the pre-inaugural Friday morning church service was also purchased by a billionaire fundraiser. Now, one guy gets 49 seats. He must have given a lot of money for that. Now, these documents were released from the inauguration's organizing committee, and they indicate that Donald Trump is essentially doing what we all despise of politicians, paying back their wealthy donors with access. Again, showing that he is a standard politician. That's what we've been saying for the entire election. Donald Trump, standard politician. He's going to do the same things. But anyway, now these documents include a guest list for VIPs who you likely saw standing behind Trump during the swearing-in ceremony. Now, these include mega donors like Sheldon Adelson, Carl Icahn, Steve Wynn, Woody Johnson, and Richard Lafrock. Now, these are 5 billionaires with a combined net worth of more than $60 billion. Now, Adelson was reportedly one of the very small number of people who ended up shaking hands with Donald Trump following his inaugural address. Well, I wonder how much he paid for that. Now, there's another one who is Thomas J. Barack Jr. He chaired President Trump's inaugural committee. Now, he was allocated 49 of the 259 seats for Friday morning service at St. John's Episcopal Church, which was attended by Trump and his family. More seats than those allocated to all the other donors combined. Now, the committee reportedly raised $100 million in private money to help pay for this inauguration. That's why he got so many seats. 49 seats for $100 million in donations. That's how the system works. Now, Barrack and 6 of his guests had seats in the inaugural platform. Barrack's personal seat allocation for the St. John service is roughly comparable to that of Vice President Mike Pence, who received 52 church seats and 42 platform seats designated for friends and family. Now, again, why would they purchase all those seats? Why would they make this $100 million donation? Well, it's not to get a good seat. Well, maybe it is, but in a different way. We're talking about access here, access to the president. They give Donald Trump money and they get access. Their policy priorities get prioritized over others. Now, look, this is the same problem we point out with all the different politicians. Now, do you think somebody like Donald Trump or anybody who gets all this money from these private billionaires are going to listen to you? No, they're going to listen to people like Sheldon Adelson and Carl Icahn. That's what they're going to do. And this is what it comes down to for politicians. They're not your friends. They're not your allies. They have an agenda. Okay? And it's often to make more money or to have their ideology dictated through the government. These people who give this money are now they're controlling governmental policy through their donations to these politicians. And right now, your average American for years has had little to no say in government policy. Only when it lines up with the priorities of the rich and the powerful does policy actually get put into place. So, for example, if obviously a lot of regular people are in favor of raising the minimum wage. Well, if all the billionaires and all the corporations got behind a minimum wage increase, then we would have a minimum wage increase. But if the rich don't agree, it's very, very unlikely to get put into power or put into law. Policies lacking broad support among the rich are only implemented about 18% of the time. Now, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that surrounding yourself with the rich and powerful is going to make you more receptive to their needs. Not only that, but also getting their money. And that's what these documents show. Donald Trump is surrounding himself with people who do not care about you. They don't care about your wages. In fact, a lot of them would rather keep your wages down. They don't care about your Medicare. They don't care about your Social Security. They don't care about your health care. You know, they're in a rush to repeal the ACA, which is very flawed, a flawed piece of legislation. But it's not because they're not going after it because it's flawed, because it's hurting the American people. No, the 400 richest families will save $7 million in taxes once the ACA is repealed. They're going to get an average tax cut of $7 million. 400 richest families in America. They don't care about you, man. They don't care. And look, that's not to say that Hillary Clinton and the Democrats would have been too different on corruption, right? They would have just almost been just as corrupt. I would say that Donald Trump is even more corrupt and definitely more brazen about his corruption than Hillary Clinton would have been. But don't get me wrong, she also surrounds herself with billionaires. She surrounds herself with corporate heads. And that's why I'm saying it's not the person, it's not even the party. It is the system that isn't tilted entirely too much towards the rich and powerful. You just cannot replace one bought and corrupt party or party figurehead with another. What you have to do is you actually have to get the systemic problems and fix them. And that's, unfortunately, we've been doing the wrong thing for the last, 4, 5, 6 election cycles. But if we just replace the Republicans this time with a Democrat, then our wages are going to go up. Oh, if we just replace the Democrats with a Republican or a Republican with a Democrat, then our wages are going to go up and our lives are going to get better. Has it happened? Not to a majority of people. Even under President Barack Obama, the rich have gotten richer and wages have essentially stagnated. It's the same kind of economic policy and the same kind of economic effects. And that's the problem that we have. The solution, pretty obvious. You got to get the money out of politics, man. Not only that, but you publicly finance elections, ban lobbying from unions or corporations. Look, do some of these things. Instead of focusing on which party figurehead who says he's going to change things but actually doesn't, and you might actually, when it's all said and done, make America great again. All right, that's it, man. That's all the stories I got for you guys today. I want to thank you for staying here for the last hour. We'll be back tomorrow. as a right now undetermined time. I'm not sure, so just keep your eyes out. Hopefully, we'll get done by we'll get the show all put together by 3. But I'll let you guys know on Twitter. You can follow me at Jeff's Politics or at TYT Nation if you're on the Tweeter machine. So let me know, or I will let you know when the show is going to be. So I'm getting a little turnaround here because I'm reading comments as well. But again, I want to thank you guys for being here. I want to thank the patrons, of course, for supporting the show. Patreon.com/TYT Nation. If you want to help us grow, get a better studio, get better camera, lighting, etc., etc. Patreon.com/TYT Nation. And that's it, man. Thank you again. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation.